In this video, we're going to talk about using two features in Sheets and Excel that allow you to filter through big tables of data in order to get down to pieces that you want to find. So we're going to look at the filter function and the unique function. So before we looked at this table of Super Bowl winners, and there's a few things we might want to do with this table. For example, rather than go year by year and look at all the different teams that won, maybe we would just want to know how many different unique teams have ever won a Super Bowl. So I'd have to go through and just notice that New England won in 2017, but they also won in 2015. So even though we've had 3 years of winners, we've only had 2 separate teams win. Now, the unique function helps to make it easy to find out how many actual different entries you have in a table. So we're just going to type out unique. And let's bring up the tooltip, and it simply says, give me a range, and I will tell you how many unique results are in that range. So if we were to take, for instance, the F column, and say how many unique entries are there, it'll give us the only Super Bowl winners from the NFL. So this list is a lot shorter, a lot more manageable. So if we started to scroll down, we'd see that New England has popped up a lot in recent years. It's not really worth reading through this to keep seeing that name over and over again. So the unique function can synthesize it down quickly. Now, that is useful if you just want to find out the unique characters inside of a list or the unique items inside of a list. But what if you wanted to sort your list or reduce your list based on a criteria with a conditional statement? So then you might want to use filters. Now, you can turn filters on through the menus in Sheets. If you go to the Data tab, there is a filter button. So this filter button, and I just selected this column, so let me undo that. We can select these categories up top and say I want to be able to filter based on these different categories. So for example, I might say I only want to see games that were decided by a field goal. Perhaps I only want to see the nail-biter games. So by clicking on all these buttons, it reduces my table down to the only Super Bowl games in history that were decided by a field goal. Now, that's pretty interesting and neat, but there's a lot of clicking involved. And we don't always want to actually use the filter button through clicking, because when we try to work with this data, we still have a little bit of problems. If you notice on this left side, these numbers skip around. We go from row 8 to row 13 to 16, 17, 19, 30, and 50. So all the other data is still in there, it's just kind of hidden. So we're going to use a different form of filtering the data. What we're going to do is program in a filter. So first, let's turn these off so we get back to our full data set. And we'll go over to a different piece of the page, and we are going to type in the word filter. And we'll bring up our tooltip again. And there are a few things that we want to put in here. The very first being the range. So the range in this case means all the data that you want to look through. So for us, that would be A4 through G54. So there is our range. And remember, you can always extend a range infinitely. If you just left off the final number, that's going to take it down forever. So if we added to this list, for instance, it would include those new items. After that, we're going to put in a condition. And if you remember, when we talk about conditional statements, we just mean something that is either true or false. So if we wanted to find out if the game was close, we might decide that our condition is this game decider column, whether or not it's a field goal. If it's a field goal, it was a close game. So our condition might be G4 through the whole G column. Is that ever equal to the word field goal or the words field goal? Because if it is, then it was a close game and we want to include that data. If it was not, it wasn't a close game, we don't want to include that data. So with that, we've written our filter. We've put the range of data that we want to look at, the information we want to check, and the value we want to compare it to. So if we hit enter, we come up with a column that is only those things that we filtered for before. The nice thing about it is that they're in consecutive columns. So now if we wanted to get, for instance, the average score from just these games, it's easy to use formulas because we're only looking at a small region as opposed to a set of data with hidden rows. Now, you may have also noticed that when we wrote our filter method, there's an option to add extra conditional statements. So we might also want to say, perhaps we're only interested in games where it was close and Philadelphia was one of the teams. So then what we might do is go and say, let's add another condition, and we're going to look at only the NFC teams, and we want to find out when they are equal to, quote, Philadelphia. So now we are filtering based on two conditional statements. In this entire range, when is it that the game decider was a field goal and the team for the NFC was Philadelphia? And when we apply that filter, we end up with only one entry. 2005, Philadelphia sadly lost to the New England Patriots by one field goal. So that is a brief introduction to the unique function and filters.